Yes. No, it's great. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a perfect time to make sure all cell phones are turned off for the service.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's very cold out, and it's really wonderful to have so much warmth here inside with us. The child asked, "Tell me of life." And the sage answered, "Life, my child, is a mystery. We do not ask to be born, nor do we even understand the meaning of birth, of creation. We grow and we experience life's pleasures and pains. We love, and slowly, oh so slowly, we come to realize that we have become, that we are. At that moment, we humble ourselves before the mystery of life and quietly say, though I knew not, I have been granted the most precious gift of all, the gift of life." And the child asked, "Tell me of death." And the sage answered, "Death, my child, is a mystery. It is the inevitable return of the gift of life, the gift which came free to us. We live as the trustee of that mysterious being, of that unexplainable becoming. Yes, you and I are but the trustees of life. We nurture it, we delight in it, we give of it to others. And at the appointed time, we sadly, yet with pride, return it from whence it came. The beauty, my child, is that we are, what we have become, remains long after the gift has been returned. It remains as a precious keepsake with our loved ones who live on. We remember Gary and join our hearts together to give comfort and strength to his family. Mourning is a time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers, thus linking Gary's life with the millennia-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. Psalm 121. Shir Gamalot Esaina Ezri name Adonai, Oseh Shamayim ba'aretz, al yitem lamod b'aglacha, al yanum shomrecha, hilenu sham, shomer Yisrael, Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha, al yad yeminecha. Yomam Hashemesh v'yareach b'layla yishmecha mikora yishmor et nafshecha Adonai yishmor tzedcha u'varecha me'ata v'yad me'ata a song for ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. Adonai is your protection at your right hand. By day, the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard your going and coming now and forever. Psalm 23. Adonai roi lo echzar, binot deshe yarbetzeni, amei menuchot yanchilenu. Nafshi yisovev, yancheni magale tzedek, lema'an shemo. We'll continue in English that's in your paper. Together we'll say, with God as my shepherd, I shall not want. The Eternal makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, restores my soul, guides me in straight paths for the sake of God's name. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Eternal forever. Gary Agron was born on December 21st, 1944 in St. Joseph, Missouri, the only child of his parents, Ruth Bernstein Agron and J. Harry Agron. After a brief time in Brooklyn, New York, he and his parents moved to Tucson, Arizona, where he spent the remainder of his childhood and teenage years. Gary's father, a serial entrepreneur who laid the foundation for Gary's entrepreneurial spirit, had two drive-in movie theaters in Tucson, 22nd Street Drive-In and the Apache Drive-In. Gary worked selling popcorn and making snow cones, and occasionally checking trunks for stowaways, sneaking more people in for the $1 admission per car. After a year at the University of Arizona, he transferred to and graduated from the University of Colorado Boulder, where he earned both his graduate degree and his Juris Doctor with the highest honors. While in college, Gary was a proud member of the Phi Sigma Delta fraternity, where he made friendships so enduring that many of you are here today. When Gary graduated from law school, he began his career in a large law firm before shifting to a solo practice, which he ran for 40 years. Gary's law career was accompanied by his serial entrepreneurship, including starting companies with friends, building homes, doing neighborhood rentals, success as a restaurateur, and owning a used car lot. He also created the idea for an investment management company that Brian and Noah now run. Gary was not a one-trick pony with many interests and skills, and along the way, he built strong relationships with different business partners, and many of you are here today as well. Gary married Vicki Morris, with whom he had 3 children, Adam, Megan, and Noah. He later married Janice and gained a stepdaughter, Jennifer Frankel, who he helped to raise as his own daughter. Gary had 12 grandchildren, ranging from 24 years old all the way down to 2. Gary really knew his grandchildren, bonding with them over the traditions he created, in particular, the big family trips to Maui, including the trip they just returned from earlier this month. Gary's memory will be lovingly and beautifully honored this afternoon by his children, who are going to share with us reflections on their dad, who he was, and the legacy that will live on beyond his years. So Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen. Gary was my stepdad, and he was the best one I could have imagined. He was also a wonderful father-in-law and business partner to my husband, Brian, grandpa to my kids, Lucy and Dean, and husband to my mom, Janice, for 26 years. Gary and I had a lot of fun when I was a kid. In a lot of ways, he was more like my irresponsible, much older brother with the keys to the car. I need you to remember or imagine what the 80s were like for a minute. While I describe our typical weekend, we would get in Gary's convertible. He had many over the years. Instead of the passenger seat, I would sometimes ride sitting up on the back of the car and sometimes squished into that spot that's not quite a back seat. We'd go to some really unhealthy place for food, usually Winchell's, and go to the movies and see something R-rated that I should not have been allowed to see, and maybe watch the Broncos lose a Super Bowl. Maybe he would have a bunch of friends over for a pool party or Trivial Pursuit, and he'd make his famous ribs. All of the above was done while smoking a cigarette and probably without a shirt. Later in the 90s, he was required by law to provide me with a seatbelt. He replaced the donuts with running. His Broncos redeemed themselves, and he agreed to put on a shirt when my friends came over. Before I could drive, Gary would take me to school every day. I loved this, and I also dreaded it. He liked to start our mornings together by jumping out of the pantry and scaring me as I went to get my breakfast. And then when I started refusing to open the pantry, he kept changing his location until eventually I was afraid to leave my room. He drove me to school while I ate cereal beside him. And when we arrived in front of school, he would yell out the window to any boys walking by, asking which one of them was my boyfriend. When the novelty of that wore off, he would open his car door in front of hundreds of kids and dump my remaining cereal and milk onto the parking lot while making vomiting noises. Embarrassing me was how he showed he cared. Gary was funny and mischievous for sure, but also the warmest person I've ever known. He made friends everywhere he went, and the way his eyes would crinkle when he smiled would light up a room. He gave the best hugs. When I couldn't sleep as a kid, he would make warm milk and stay up with me, then let me sleep the rest of the night in the comfy chair by his bed. Every night when I was growing up, Gary would call Adam, Megan, and Noah in New York. He wanted as much of them as he could get, every detail of their days at school, stories about their friends. He flew them out for weekends and vacations and always made them a priority. He was a real model for all of us once we became parents. We traveled a lot to Tucson to visit his mom, Nana Ruth, to Europe, Israel, on cruises, and every year to Maui, where 22 of us were lucky to be together just last month. Gary was a creature of habit. Maybe that's why he took us to the exact same spot in Maui, something like 35 times. A little side note, he also kept his own pillows and blankets there. He found something he liked and he stuck with it, whether it was a vacation, a restaurant, a brand of t-shirt or running shoe, a late night snack, or a friend. You could set your watch by him. Gary was the best grandpa. He was simultaneously the respected patriarch and just a big kid himself. His grandkids loved being around him and felt truly known by him. He prioritized spending time with them on vacations and holidays as a group, and then one-on-one, like the special dinners he would arrange with my daughter, Lucy, usually at a restaurant where no one else could get a reservation, but he could because he knew everyone who worked there. Looking through our recent texts, I realized our conversations could be put into 4 categories: food, TV shows that we never agreed on, politics that we did, and spontaneous messages of love and support. Like, I'm really proud of you. That husband of yours is a real peach. Lucy and Dean are awesome. Keep up the good work. During one of our last conversations, he told me that he doesn't think anyone he knew had more fun than him, that he felt like he truly lived every minute of his life. That is the most comforting thought and the best roadmap for the rest of us that I can imagine.
That was great, Jen. Very entertaining. Hi, it's great to be in Denver and seeing so many people from our family's life through the years, and I'm really looking forward to spending some time with each of you over the next couple of days and at Shiva. As most of you know, along with Adam and Megan, I grew up in New York, but unlike Adam and Meg, I chose to stay in New York to live, work, and start a family. We often joke that because of this, I'm the black sheep of the family. It was probably up until our last Maui trip last month that Dad tried to cajole us to move to Denver with bribes of cash and cars, or citing Denver's low rates of crime and traffic. He always pushed his agenda in a lighthearted way, but I'll admit his pestering made me feel good that he wanted us close by. So we lived far away, moving 16 miles to New York with my mother in 1982, but Dad always made it a priority to make it feel for us like he was just around the corner, giving us an AT&T calling card whose 16-digit number you entered to place to collect calls to him, and I still know by memory, racking up thousands of dollars in phone bills, as well as constant trips back to Denver for holidays, summer break, or just the odd weekend he wanted to be with us. Other than Denver, our travels took us to Hawaii, Europe, Las Vegas, Mexico, and the mountains, and on cruises. Dad liked to kick off most of these trips by promptly summoning housekeeping to his hotel room or condo to clean the carpet and have the air conditioning unit replaced. The room should be located far from the elevator as possible. Wherever we were, Dad liked to shop. The knitwear people at Bergdorf's knew his annual sweater order when he walked in the New York City store. Dad was also very popular at the Polo Mansion in Hyde Park, where he built an impressive collection of watches, some of which he has gifted to Adam and Megan and me at milestone occasions on our lives. This is from my wedding in 2012. Along with my mother, Dad believed in not being shy to spend, appreciating the finer things, and it rubbed us on us. Denver people, I mean, just look at Adam. Had to get one in. We joke about it, but there was an important lesson there too. Know what it is to have nice things and be driven to acquire them for yourself if that's your desire. Living in Devonshire and then in Glenmore, there always seemed to be an army of people fixing things, cleaning the pool, taking his car to be inspected while Dad was at work. Another lesson he would share, which no doubt paid off, it's better to worry how to make money than how to save money. I think it's a great one. I know my father was pleased that I chose to attend college and graduate school in Colorado, and I always loved it when he came to Boulder to take me to dinner, just the two of us, or come by the fraternity house. Dad always spoke fondly of his days in Phi Sigma Delta at CU, where he and many of his friends here today gave Ralphie the Buffalo his name, if you didn't know that. And I think it played heavily into Adam, Megan, my decision to be part of the Greek system at CU. I can't speak for them, but it was the best part for me about going to college. After grad school, I tried my hand at a few different occupations with varying degrees of success. Dad was a true believer in the adage that if you love your job, you will never work a day in your life. Dad was always encouraging as I sought to find my calling as a professional. As most of you know, he was a securities attorney, and when I made the decision 11 years ago to go in the equity capital markets business, I knew he was happy because he could help and provide the encouragement on a constant basis if necessary. It turned out to be the best professional decision I've ever made. That approach to business, which includes Brian, with a light touch. Talking business always felt more like sharing a hobby than making a living. I think that when Dad unofficially retired from practicing law, he simply enjoyed being part of what the business meant to him, sharing his own transactional experiences to guide us and manage risk, but mostly shooting the shit about deals, gossiping about brokers and the bankers and the market. Our yearly Vegas Super Bowl trip slowly became a brokerage firm junket and always was a highlight of the year for me. Lots of fun, but my father always shared his underlying principles in business of treating people with respect and fairness, if those principles go against our financial interests, and always to play the long game. Brian and I have prospered in business because of his moral compass. While all this was happening, I met my wife and we welcomed 3 beautiful children. And even though we are still 1,600 miles away, had their grandpa around the corner with trips to Maui and visits to New York City and Denver, and lots of FaceTime calls. My father, while not one of those to get down on the ground and wrestle grandparents, was always a constant presence in their lives. One of the most difficult parts of his death is that my kids will not get to learn more from him. Dad also had a great love for my wife, Casey, and it was very hard for her that she did not get a chance to say goodbye. He was always very happy I chose to marry me. I do hope that we'll be able to give a portion of the love back we were able to give a portion of that love back when we named our 3rd child, James Gary Agron, to honor him in 2020. I feel that pleased him very much. I would tell young parents today to go ahead and name your children after living people in their lives. Don't wait. You'd be happy to know that Dad remained sharp, reflective, and even humorous in the very end. He was grateful for his 78 years and was not afraid of what lied beyond because he lived such a rich life. Our last week or so was spent at his bedside sharing stories of his life, and we all greatly enjoyed that. Being with and caring for my dad was a team effort, and I want to thank Adam, Meg, Brian, and Steve, and my wife for their hard work and sacrifices they made at home so we could spend so much time with him at the end of his life. Now that he is not with us anymore, it's going to be difficult not to have him for personal and professional guidance. I think what I'll do is simply try and recall any one of our thousands of interactions, which always seem to end with reassurances that I was on the right track in life, which is the greatest gift a parent can give his child. Thank you.
I'm clearly going to be the crier, I think. Hi, everyone. My dad was my North Star. The North Star is the brightest star in the sky. Is not the brightest star in the sky, but many people think that it is. It is 2,500 times more luminous than the sun. It's 4 times the diameter of the sun, and it's 5 times the mass. It is in the same location every night, from dusk to dawn, and is visible to the naked eye. If you look for the North Star, you'll always know where you are. Researchers say the North Star will not be around forever. My dad didn't command a presence. He wasn't the life of the party, but he was likely the smartest person in the room. My dad was brilliant. And unless you knew him, you probably didn't know that. He was very unassuming. And he would probably not love all of this pomp and circumstance today. In fact, he recently described himself to Adam and I as shy. I don't think Dad was shy. He certainly didn't want to be the center of attention, and he definitely shied away from conflict. He liked to be in control of his surroundings, right up to the last moment, telling everybody what to do, how to do it. And he was very private. I don't believe he wore his heart on his sleeve, But even with all of that, I feel as though people who met him knew him. And even people who never really met him knew him. He spoke with his eyes, he spoke with his smile, and his mere existence spoke to people. Dad was generous in a way that was almost indescribable. He always fought for the underdog. He was generous with his time. He lent his experience. He was patient, and he was thoughtful. He was steadfast. His confidence was off the charts. When it was time for me to leave my first family law firm, I sought my dad's advice, as I always did. And he told me without hesitation that I should start my own firm. The next thing I knew, he was guaranteeing our firm's line of credit, the seed money that we used to open our doors. As my law partners and I sat at the bank around this round table with my dad, he didn't say anything to us specifically, but we all knew he had unconditional faith in us and that he was proud of us. I think that motivated each and every one of us as time went on. And I can honestly say that our 12 and a half years of successes have been my dad's successes. As many of you know, our parents divorced in 1979, and in 1982, Mom moved to New York and took the three of us with her. Dad stayed in Colorado. As a testament to his dedication to being an involved dad, he visited New York, often staying in the guest room at Mom and Joel's house. And the boys and I flew from Denver to Colorado, and from New York to Colorado and back about 7 to 9 times a year, just the three of us. Dad refused to let distance come in the way of his relationship with us. He told us recently that after we moved to New York, it was his singular goal in life to see us as much as he could. He fought to stay in our lives, and he was a constant, even 1,600 miles away. We all grew up knowing if we needed him, he would be there, no matter what, no questions asked, anytime, day or night. As I see in my work life, divorce is incredibly hard on children. And I'm grateful that my parents put the boys and I first. My parents' love was complicated, and their friendship was eternal, according to Dad. They were amazing co-parents. They always encouraged and supported our love for both of them. As a result, as many people know, I became a daddy's girl. My relationship with my dad was so different than it was with my dad and the boys. We trusted each other wholeheartedly. No topic was off limits. There was never any judgment. We made each other feel safe. I'm grateful that he trusted me and loved me unconditionally. In a letter, he wrote to me and said, quote, "You have blessed me and given my life meaning every day of your life. Your payback is my commitment to cherish you for our entire lives." The mark my dad left on this world, his legacy, it's unmatched. His personal and professional accomplishments are many, and they came by way of hard work, commitment, tenacity. His impact on others, family, friends, community, through his actions, his words, his good deeds, his values, his beliefs, was unparalleled. No one will ever fill my dad's shoes. I know that his children and his grandchildren will make sure that he is never forgotten and that his legacy lives on. My dad was incredibly proud of his kids. I know that because he told us often. In a note he left for Adam, Noah, and I, he said, quote, "I'm tempted to drift here into a diatribe of pearls of advice for conducting your lives, but I won't. I think we did a decent, good job raising you, parentheses, thanks, Vicky, end parentheses. And you guys don't need advice. Matter of fact, you should be giving me advice, not the other way around. And then he thanked us for the choices that we made in our lives, choices that he said in this letter to us made it easier for him to leave, knowing that we would be okay. My dad was not afraid to die. He didn't feel shortchanged, not for 1 second. He said he would not trade his 78 years of life, even if it meant he could live longer. He truly lived life to the fullest and led by example. And in my times of deep sadness, I know that those sentiments will comfort me. However, from my standpoint, 78 years was just not enough. My heart aches knowing that I can't meet him for a weekly dinner. I can't pick up the phone and hear his voice or get advice. My heart aches even more for his grandchildren who will not have any more time with him to learn from him and to create more memories and to feel his constant warmth, security, and unconditional love. My dad was my North Star. To me, no one shined brighter. He was larger than life, brighter and bigger than the sun. He was fiercely devoted, always there for me day and night. He was the buoy that oftentimes kept me afloat and the lighthouse that gave me direction. I can't imagine my life without my North Star.
Damn, I should have known better not to follow a trial lawyer. That was very poor planning. Thank you all for being here. When I think about my dad and recall the 50 years I got to spend with him, what first comes to mind for me is that I want to thank him. By the way, I'm going to be the crier, clearly. What the hell? Guys. And interestingly, when we were sitting by his side on Thursday, after we brought him home from the hospital, we pulled out a 1970s leather briefcase we found in one of his drawers that was full of photos, notes, and mementos he collected over the years. The notes were mostly from Megan, Noah, Jen, and me. There were also some from the grandkids. It seemed that he kept every card the four of us ever sent him before the advent of email. And there are even some emails printed out. In these notes, we were always thanking him for something, buying us shoes, sending us to camp, subscribing for cable TV, taking us on a trip, sending us to college, and so on. There were countless notes. He kept hundreds of them. That trip down memory lane illustrated for me how thankful I am for so many things my dad gave me. I would like to share a few of those things with you today. My dad introduced us to skiing. We were all on skis starting at the age of 3. Initially, I think my parents got us into skiing because they could drop us off at the Happy Canyon Shopping Center every Saturday morning at dawn during the winter, where a school bus shipped us up to Loveland with the Eager Beaver Ski Club because it gave them a break from parenting 3 young kids. However, we all fell in love with skiing, so that may have backfired. Eventually, my parents bought a small 2-bedroom condo in Vail. They sold that condo and they got divorced and we moved to New York, but my dad continued our skiing tradition with an annual trip to Vail during President's Week. Skiing is a part of the reason I came back to Colorado for college, which afforded me the opportunity to regularly see my dad after living 1,600 miles away from him during grade school. He was a fixture at my fraternity house in Boulder. Every one of my friends, several of whom are here today, knew and loved my dad. And I'm not sure that I would fit into the Wolf family if it was not for skiing and our shared love of the mountains, which is why Katie and I got married in Vail and spend as much time there as possible. My kids always ask me why I love skiing as much as I do, and the answer is it brought me home to Colorado and closer to my dad. As you've heard today, my dad loved to travel. He had a great sense of adventure, so long as it did not involve camping. And he and Jan traveled throughout the world. They brought Megan, Noah, Jen and I to Europe on Caribbean cruises, and we still take an annual family trip to Maui, as you've heard today, which now includes all the grandkids. My dad encouraged Megan, Noah, and I to study abroad during college, and we did. Travel opens up your eyes to different religions, cultures, and ways of life. Done right, it teaches you to be a humble and kind, appreciative of how fortunate we all are to live in the United States, and generous to those who we encounter who are less fortunate. I think we can agree that above all else, my dad was humble, kind, and generous. I can offer countless stories of people who came across my dad during his travels that he impressed in some way, whose lives he improved in some way. Whether it was a big tip to a waiter he hit it off with, a woman who works at the office at the Kaanapali Ali'i, who was complaining about being out of shape but unsure how to get into exercise routine. So my dad started including her on his morning runs, and she remains an avid runner to this day. To simply offering a genuine, warm smile to someone who helped him. His smile was unforgettable. Almost everyone who came across my dad remembered him and was positively impacted by him. I try to live his values every day, and Katie and I try to impart them to our girls, because my dad showed us that there's no reason not to pay it forward, the good fortune that we've had. Although I'm not the foodie that my brother is, the truth is, nor is my dad. He loved food for the experience of it. It provided him with an opportunity to spend quality time with his family and friends. It was a reason to get together. And anyone who knows my dad knows that he milked it. He purposely took very small bites, so it took him twice as long as everyone at the table to finish his meal. But he didn't care. Despite ribbing from everyone he dined with, he never changed. He enjoyed every minute and every bite, and more importantly, the banter in between. It was always less about the food and more about the opportunity for togetherness that food provided him. I now look at food the same way, as a way for our family to connect and spend time together. And for that, I'm so grateful to my dad. My dad introduced me to law and the love of helping clients. We started talking about the deals he was working on as far back as I can remember. He always had the most interesting clients who were either inventing something new, like the Grove fruit and nut stand at the airport, knocking off a restaurant concept like Hooker's Hamburgers or Twisty Treat ice cream, or creating one of the first internet companies like kpasta.com. He literally did hundreds of public offerings. But what was more important than his work ethic and brilliant mind was the relationships he built with his clients. My dad represented many of his clients for decades across numerous new ventures. Once someone worked with my dad, they stuck with him. On a number of occasions, my dad's clients became too large and successful to be working with a solo practitioner, but they refused to hire a big firm, even though there was often an international 1,000-lawyer firm on the other side of the deal. They fought to work with him because he was so much more than a lawyer to his clients. He became a partner in their businesses. He often knew their businesses better than they did. His advice was invaluable and indispensable. My sister and I would not be attorneys today if it were not for my dad. And whatever success I have had in my career is due to what I learned from my dad. When I first joined my firm, I would call my dad every day for advice. This went on for more years than I can care to admit. And while the frequency of my calls eventually subsided, I never stopped calling him for advice. Don't tell any of my law partners who may be in the room today, but my dad's advice was better than any advice I got working at a large firm. In reality, despite the fact that I never worked for my dad, My dad was the person who trained me to be a lawyer. Last and most importantly, my dad taught me how to be a father. He taught me to be firm but gentle, strict but fun, and never expect more than what you've earned, but be generous. I don't know of a more generous or selfless person than my dad. He also taught me how to love and show me that the love you receive in return is what life is all about. The greatest treasure in my life is the family that Katie and I are building together. And we say all the time that we would not have the incredible relationships we have with our kids if it were not for the example that was set by our parents. And for that, I'm eternally grateful to my dad. In sum, my dad taught me a lot of things. But truth be told, he was much better at all of these things than I am or ever will be. So thank you, Dad. I love you, and I hope I will make you proud.
Adam, I heard you say before we came in here that we were gonna come and celebrate your dad and celebrate grandpa, and you all have done that so beautifully in the way that you spoke today. We invite you to rise if you're able for El Malay Rachamim. El Malay Rachamim Shochen B'Amayim המסי מלוכה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה עם קדושים וטהורים כזוהר כי המזהירים את נשמת אברהם בן אהרון ורות שלח לעולמו בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בצדק כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור ביצור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו ינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר אמן. In a moment, we'll recite the words of the mourner's Kaddish, which are words that are intended to be with you as his children and grandchildren for this next entire year without him. And often we have an inclination to speed through things that are hard because we want to be done with them. But that's not the intention here. We're going to say these words really very slowly. I think Jim has them for you. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam omei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudasha brichu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Please be seated. We'll close with words of peace. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. They are called Israel, name. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleichem. I'll call Israel, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom. We are cold Israel.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does include our memorial service. The family will be receiving back at Megan's and Steve's home. The address is on the back of the program. There are more programs out there. If we can ask you to please refrain from coming forward and trying to greet the family at this time, it will delay their process in trying to get to the house where they can receive you. That is just for today is at Megan's home. Tomorrow will be at Adam and Katie's home. Also, the address is on this piece of paper. Thank you all for your attendance.
No, I know. And I do it with that. And I realized Oh my God, they had some cards were long for the. For understanding. I watch it.